So, how can a company be a champion of open source software and at the same time one of its most aggressive monetizers? Today, we're going to dive into one of the most fascinating business case studies in tech right now, Oracle's seemingly contradictory open proprietary strategy. Believe me, it's a high-stakes game that is totally reshaping the cloud and software world. Oracle has always had this reputation, right? The enfant terrible of the tech world. They've somehow mastered this incredible balancing act between two totally opposite forces, building super profitable, high-margin proprietary software while also being the official guardian for some of the planet's most critical open source projects. It's a really delicate and, let's be honest, often controversial dance. All right, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the two faces of Oracle's market position. Then we'll dig into the two main pillars of their strategy, the infamous Java tax and their ambitious cloud engine. And finally, we'll look at the bottom line, the verdict on their massive $500 billion gamble. All right, let's get right into it. See, to really get what Oracle is doing, you've got to understand the battlefield they're on. They are simultaneously a king in one area and a tiny challenger in another, and that creates this massive strategic dilemma. And wow, this slide right here, it just lays it all out perfectly. I mean, look at this. In the database market, they are an absolute titan. We're talking 40% of the market. But then you look at the cloud, the place where everything is headed, and they're just a tiny player with only 3%. So that's the big question, right? How do you use that massive strength in one place to build up your weakness in another? Okay, so that leads us perfectly into the first pillar of their strategy. And boy, is this a controversial one? We're talking about Java, one of the most popular programming languages on Earth. This is all about how Oracle decided to monetize something that millions of people had, for a long time, thought of as basically free. So back in 2023, Oracle just completely changed the game. They rolled out this thing called the Java Universal Subscription. And the big switch was this. Instead of paying for the number of people actually using Java, companies now had to pay based on their total employee headcount. Yeah, you heard that right. Every single employee, from the software engineers to the folks in marketing. A huge, huge shift. And this just shows you how big a deal that was. Before, simple. You paid for the people who actually used it. Made sense. After, bam, the bill is based on your entire company's size, regardless of who's actually coding in Java. For any large company, this was a massive financial shock. So, what did this actually mean for big companies? Well, for a lot of them, their licensing costs suddenly jumped by 2, 3, even 5 times. It's no surprise the industry immediately started calling this the Java tax. It effectively turned a beloved open source tool into a massive revenue engine for Oracle. And this is where things get really wild. It's a total paradox. So Gartner predicts that, by 2026, a huge chunk of companies, over 80%, will be trying to get off Oracle's Java. But, and this is the kicker, Oracle's Java revenue is still through the roof. It's at record highs. Why? Because for these massive corporations, switching is just so incredibly expensive and complicated that sometimes it's just easier to pay the tax. All right, so with that cash cow secured, let's look at the second pillar of this whole thing, the cloud engine. It's this really clever two-part strategy. They're building moats to protect their castle, but they're also building bridges to other kingdoms. Okay, so here's the moat part of the plan, and you have to admit it's pretty slick. Step 1, they offer MySQL, a fantastic, world-class open-source database. Everyone loves it. Then, step 2, they build this super high-performance proprietary layer on top of it called HeatWave. The catch? And here's step 3. HeatWave only runs on Oracle's own cloud, OCI. So what's the final step? You guessed it. They turn all those millions of happy MySQL users into paying OCI customers. But, Oracle isn't dumb. They knew building moats and walls wasn't going to be enough. They couldn't just force everyone to come to them. So they did something really pragmatic. They basically said, okay, we have to follow the data, even if that means going into enemy territory. And this move was, honestly, a shock to a lot of people in the industry. For decades, Oracle was famous for its walled garden. You were either in or you were out. And now they're partnering up with their biggest rivals. I mean, look at this. Oracle database running natively inside AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. That would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. And the goal is brutally simple. Go where the customers are and protect that all-important database revenue no matter whose cloud it's on. So after all this wild, two-faced strategy of squeezing open source with one hand and shaking hands with rivals with the other, what's the verdict? Well, let me tell you, the financial numbers are absolutely mind-blowing, but they come with a huge risk. Just look at that number, $523 billion. That is Oracle's current backlog. Think of it as confirmed contracted future revenue. It's all from these massive long-term cloud and AI deals they've been signing. It's proof that, from a sales perspective, this strategy has been an absolute home run. But, of course, that kind of success comes at a price. On the one hand, you've got all the good stuff, that insane backlog, record-breaking revenue from Java, and get this, an 817% growth in their multi-cloud database business. Incredible. But on the other side of the coin, oof, you've got developers leaving in droves, a real erosion of trust in the open source community, and the rise of some really strong competitors like PostgreSQL and MariaDB who are smelling blood in the water. And that really brings us to the big final question here, the one I want you to think about. So, what's your take? Is this whole strategy a brilliant masterstroke? Is this the new playbook for how old school tech giants not only survive but actually thrive in the cloud era? Or is it a dangerous game? A short-term cash grab that's burning bridges and destroying the one thing they might need most for the long haul, the trust of developers. It's the ultimate paradox, and honestly, only time is going to tell which way this goes.